Lycidas, a Monody by John Milton. This is part 6 of the presentation. Lycidas' literary elements. Milton called Lycidas a monody, a poem written for one speaker. The poem should be a monologue, and it begins as one, but a parade of voices soon appear to interrupt the shepherd's narration. The first is Apollo, who arrives to encourage the speaker with the promise of fame in heaven. He is followed by a train of sea gods, including Triton and his winds. After they pass, Saint Peter appears to deliver a tirade on the church. By the end of the poem, a second speaker has taken over entirely, displacing the shepherd from his elegy. Though Lycidas begins as a monody, it ultimately expands to include a chorus of voices. Analysis. Some have criticized Lycidas for being overly polished, a performance of grief rather than the thing itself. The poem has a complicated network of stories running beneath its surface, and it is possible to read Milton's many allusions to mythology and biblical episodes as so many bells and whistles proving his skill. To an extent, it is true that the poem is a performance. Milton is writing in a tradition where shepherds perform their grief through song. By turning himself and Edward King into two shepherds, Milton is becoming someone else, a character who mourns rather than his actual mourning self. There is something artificial in the transformation. It is a little bit like theatre, and Milton's speaker is always partly a caricature of the grieving pastoral shepherd. At the same time, the poem is also full of genuine emotion. Though Milton's references to other works make the poem feel like a polished artifact, his form is extremely chaotic. Dr. Samuel Johnson famously complained of Milton's uncertain rhymes. The stanzas are all different lengths, and the meter of the poem changes. The form is constantly in motion, liquid and malleable, chaotic as the grief it describes. Most of the poem is written in canzone, a form in which an irregular rhyme scheme, but the final stanza switches to ottava rima, a form with a single structured scheme, AB, AB, ABCC. The change corresponds with a change in the poem's mood, the new promise of Christian resurrection that seems to bring the speaker's grief to an end. As the speaker manages his grief, the poem formally mirrors him by moving from a chaotic rhyme scheme to a structured one. The couplet at the end of the final stanza, CC, is like a double period, a final punctuation mark. It is an overly formal gesture borrowed from the sonnet, a form of courtly poetry that also ends with a couplet. With the closing rhyme, the speaker brings state and order to the poem's chaotic form. He uses formality and structure to get above his grief, the real emotion just visible behind his calculated lines. By putting on a performance, Milton's speaker tries to distance himself from the well of emotion visible in the poem's unstable form. Each new allusion to the classical world is a fresh container for his grief, a way of describing and managing something that goes beyond words, a feeling that could overwhelm him if he did not capture in his poetry. In the speaker's invocation to the muses, he compares himself to an urn, a kind of vase that the muses will fill with water. By writing a poem about Lycidas, the speaker will contain his river of tears in a single object. Through the image, Milton implies that poetry is a way of containing grief, putting limitations around it. In cataloging his education, the speaker is attacking grief with what he knows. The speaker's performance in Lycidas is full of cracks. It could fail at any moment, and does again and again. Alas, what boots it with unceasant care to tend the homely, slighted shepherd's trade. The speaker says after a prolonged allusion to the tale of Orpheus. For a moment he seems to see that he cannot mourn Lycidas with unceasant care in his poetry, that his education will not be enough to conquer his grief. The speaker has reached a crisis that could bring the poem to a halt. Rather than resolving the problem with a solution, the speaker distracts himself with a new question the poem can answer. By the time Apollo arrives to console him, the speaker has turned from a question about the viability of poetry to one about the value of fame. He has converted an existential crisis that could potentially end the poem into a question Apollo can answer with the promise of eternal glory in heaven. It is one of many instances in Lycidas when the speaker forgets what he knows in order to move forward. The poem is full of exclamations from the speaker that amount to the same recurrent crisis. To paraphrase, Lycidas is dead, and nothing I say will bring him back again. The speaker makes the first of these exclamations in the middle of remembering his happy days with Lycidas in stanza 3. For a moment he forgets that he is mourning, and the poem becomes joyful, full of rural ditties and fresh dews. But oh, the heavy change, the speaker says, suddenly realizing that Lycidas is no longer living. The exclamation is the beginning of the speaker's ongoing realization that he cannot write Lycidas back to life. He comes to this conclusion again and again, but forgets it just as quickly. I fondly dream, he exclaims after imagining an alternative scenario in which the nymphs might have saved Lycidas. He says again after losing himself in a description of flowers. In writing a poem death, about the death of Lycidas, the speaker constantly forgets an occasion for which he is writing. By mediating on grief, turning to myths and metaphors and allusions to embellish the feeling, the speaker distances himself from the reason for his despair. He uses poetry to turn his mourning into something abstract and unreal, to distract himself from the poem's unanswerable crisis, the fact of Lycidas' actual death. Though Lycidas seems to follow a broad arc from despair to consolation, the speaker is constantly fluctuating between the two emotions. His mood, like the form of the poem, is in constant motion. The first line of the poem catches the speaker in transition, yet once more implies the speaker has just turned to his grief after a digression, a moment of fleeting happiness like those sprinkled throughout the poem. It is an opening line that seems to say, I am coming back to the place I have just been after a moment away. If you turn to the line after reading the promise of happiness in the poem's final stanza, it is possible to read Lycidas as a loop that repeats again and again, moving from consolation to dejection in an endless rotation. While the speaker presents the poem as an urn holding grief in place, it is also a continuous flow of fresh despair, a river of tears the speaker never truly contains. By the end of the poem, the speaker can imagine an end to his grief. He decides that Lycidas has died only to rise again, like a setting sun that will come up in the morning. The image is hopeful, but it also describes the flow of grief throughout the poem. The way it hits you again and again, regenerating the moment you think it has finally died forever. In the final stanza, the speaker of the poem changes. The shepherd who has been telling the story of Lycidas since stanza 1 falls silent, and another voice begins to narrate his story. The shift to a second speaker is strange because Milton calls Lycidas a monody, a poem written for one voice. By suddenly turning his speaker into someone else, a person with some distance from the grieving shepherd, Milton imagines the only scenario in which his speaker could stop grieving. With a turn to another perspective at the end of the poem, he implies that he can only end the poem and the grief of the mourning shepherd by literally becoming another person. Milton builds Lycidas around the possibility of this transformation. He begins by reimagining himself and King as two shepherds, characters with recognizable conventions for expressing their grief, a full tradition for giving words to their tears. By entering the pastoral tradition, he tries to contain a feeling he cannot suppress in life. The new names he and King wear in Lycidas are a performance, but the shift from one speaker to another in the poem's final stanza is something more. The new speaker is not putting on a show. The emergence of his voice is a rebirth, a vision of Christian resurrection embedded within the poem. Form and meter. The poem is written in iambic pentameter. An iamb is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. For example, and strictly mediate. A line of iambic pentameter has 5 feet of two-syllable iambs, a total of 10 syllables. Most of the poem follows the irregular rhyme scheme of an Italian canzone. Though canzones generally feature multiple voices, Milton calls Lycidas a monody. This creates some tension between the form Milton chooses and the way he categorizes his poem. By the end of Lycidas, we have in fact heard from many voices. When the second speaker appears in the final stanza, the rhyme scheme switches to Ottawa rhyme AB, 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 CC. The shift from one form to the other reflects the entrance of the new voice. Unlike the canzone, Ottawa rhyme is a regular rhyme scheme. It moves back and forth between two rhymes, AB, 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 then ends with a couplet in a third rhyme, CC. The arc of the rhyme scheme reflects the speaker's fluctuating emotions throughout Lycidas, the way he flips back and forth between dejection and consolation. After the oscillating rhyme scheme, the closing couplet in Ottawa Rima provides a sense of closure. The entrance of a new speaker and a new form at the end of Lycidas reinforce the effect of the rhyme scheme's final couplet, the sense that we are moving towards pastures new. Metaphors and similes. Metaphor, line 1 to 5. The immature planet whose berries the poet is picking and is cutting their leaves is a metaphor for Lycidas' death. Line 25 to 29. Shepherds as a metaphor for their friendship. Line 79 to 80. Fame is described as a plant that does not grow on mortal soil, hence the plant is acting as a metaphor for fame. The plant, which is a metaphor for fame, once again is a metaphor as it lives and spreads aloft. Lines 139 to 141. Eyes are the metaphor for the flowers of the valley. Lines 143 to 151. Wear is a metaphor to describe the way flowers manifest their appearance. Simile. Lines 45 to 49. The speaker compares the new Lycidas' death to the infection that a rose suffers. Line 106. The river Cam's bonnet sedge, line 104, is compared to the hyacinth using the word like. Lines 45 to 49, Lycidas' death has been compared to the effect on shepherds' ears as caterpillars eating roses. The poem has an abundance of classical allusions starting from laurels, recalling the story of Apollo and Daphne, to the sacred sisters, hinting at the nine muses of Mount Helicon, who are long believed to inspire poetry. Alliteration and assonance. In solemn troops and sweet societies that sing and singing in their glory move, there is alliteration of s in these lines. Or whether thou to our moist vows denied, there is repetition of ow sound. Swart star, there is repetition of ow sound. The genre of the poetry is pastoral elegy. The setting is a rural landscape. The tone is both mournful and cheeky. Though the speaker genuinely mourns Lycidas, he is always skeptical of tools available to him. He is aware of the limitations of pastoral poetry and comes close to parodying them. Protagonist and antagonist, speaker versus self, and speaker versus fate. The poem has an abundance of classical allusions starting from laurels, recalling the story of Apollo and Daphne, to the sacred sisters, hinting at the nine muses of Mount Helicon, who are long believed to inspire poetry. Here is an example. What could the muse herself that Orpheus bore, the muse herself for her enchanting son, whom universal nature did lament, when by the rout that made the hideous roar, his gory vices down the stream was sent, down the swift Hebrus to the Lesbian shore. The stanza alludes to the story of how Orpheus died. He was killed by followers of Bacchus, a Greek god who traveled around the world sowing chaos. Orpheus' death is associated with mayhem. By emphasizing his head floating down a river, Milton links his story to Edward King's death at sea and suggests that it too is a story of randomness and disorder. Metonymy and synecdoche. Waft and hapless youth. Youth is a metonym for Lycidas. Personification. Lines 39 to 41. Woods and caves have been personified. Who mourns? Lines 42 to 44. Willow and hazel leaves have been personified. Who used to dance to Lycidas' songs. Lines 143 to 151. Flowers have been personified by the use of the word wear. Hyperbole. The whole poem is an overstatement of Milton's feelings for King. There has been some debate over whether Milton and King were truly close, and most agree that they did not know each other well. Though Cambridge mourned the loss of King's talent, none of the poems he published were exceptional. To say that all of nature wept for him exaggerates the loss. Irony. Even as Milton's speaker seems to mourn, he catalogues everything he knows about the classical world, blending his resume with his grief. For this reason, some have criticized the elegy as jaded and inauthentic. Though the speaker seems to eulogize Lycidas, he is also announcing his literary ambitions. It is an irony embedded within pastoral poetry and the singing competitions between shepherds who use their grief to perform. Apostrophe. Line 1 to 5. The poet addresses laurels and myrtles with the word O. This is called apostrophe. Here are a few important questions on Lycidas. What is the meaning of Milton's famous line, the last infirmity of noble mind? How would you justify the digressions in Lycidas? What does Milton mean by two-handed engine in Lycidas? Write a short note. What are some religious and pastoral elements in John Milton's poem Lycidas? Explain in detail. Is John Milton's poem Lycidas merely a pastoral lament for a dead friend or a poem of greater significance? Why does Milton's poem Lycidas rely so heavily on allusions, especially allusions to classical texts? What are some ways in which Milton uses religious and pastoral elements in his poem titled Lycidas? Examine the elegiac elements in John Milton's pastoral elegy Lycidas. Critically evaluate Lycidas as an elegy. What do laurels and myrtles stand for in Lycidas? What are the classical elements in Lycidas? In Lycidas, how does Milton illustrate the healing power of nature? How does the narrator of Lycidas describe heaven? Are there any particularly important features?